part 3 for this week is the thing that's been coming up in conversations for me and for others is embarrassment. Embarrassment. Where does embarrassment show up in our life? And embarrassment is essentially shame, feeling ashamed of something. And that is the lowest emotion on the David Hawkins scale of consciousness. That's the lowest one. So if I'll go ahead and put this up right here is, let's see. Yeah. And, we might have a positive mindset in, the top of our mind, but if in our subconscious, if we're holding on to the shame, this fear of embarrassment, that is bringing us all the way down here. And one of the books that I started reading this week is called The Mastery of Love. Shout out to Hannah Chapman, fellow mastermind member, who recommended this book. And in this book, we'll just take a look at it. It talks about how we practice early on feeling something. So when we're young, we want to get our way and then we get angry or something gets taken away. So we practice being that. And then pretty soon we realize that we can keep practicing that to get what we want most times. So the idea from this book in that section was that, okay, we're all masters of something. In fact, we're all masters of many things. And so have we gotten good at practicing being angry? Have we gotten good at practicing being sad? Have we gotten good at practicing being self-defeating? And as we practice that, that's like a groove in our neurochemistry, in our brain, in our way of being. And it's easier and easier to hop into that groove, like the Jamaican bobsled team from like that Disney movie like 20 years ago. Cool Runnings, I think. It's like you hop in, just whoom, you're in that groove of shooting down, of being angry or being self-defeating or whatever it is. So that's where I looked at myself and I was like, oh, I think I've been practicing feeling embarrassed, from early on. Embarrassed for different things, like, my weight growing up, different things, friends having different things that I didn't have. And I realized that kind of created an oversensitivity, and it could be linked to needing acceptance or different things. So, this embarrassment theme, what I found myself, and I've been talking with others, it brings us way down here. And down here is like zero flow. Is like we're barely alive, but we're zero flow. Up here is, maximum flow. So that's what I think I'd like to open up the topic this week is we'll focus on your specific body pain that you have. And perhaps an extra lens is, where does the embarrassment come in? Could be, if we take a look at our live course during the core areas, business, health, relationships, spirituality, body, being, these are all areas. Where do we feel that come in? And how does that hold us back? For feeling embarrassed, maybe it's a tightness that I notice that I hold, instead of being, free, instead of being loose. And of course, in sports, when we're tight, we perform the worst. That's when baseball players are in a slump. That's when people are out of it. So taking a look at these, I think let's just take a look at, let's just take a note right now of where do you feel like embarrassment shows up in your life the strongest this week? And, I feel like this can be personal, or maybe it's just me. But, I think maybe just, if you could, just let me know in the chat that you found one. You don't have to share if you don't want, but it's just like, okay, I got one, or maybe 2 or 3 pops up. This week in particular, what comes up in terms of feeling embarrassment. And that can show up in different ways of, oh, well, they're going to think this of me, or they're going to say this about me, or I'm going to have to talk to them about this, or I shrink, when this topic comes up. Let's say in the chat, just let me know when you feel like you found your topic. Don't have to tell me the topic, of course. You can just share that you got yours. And why is my chat not showing? Zoom did give me an update earlier today. Maybe that update is making me not see my comments. There we go. Okay, so Tim's got his, Elle's got hers. Christy, do you have yours? So let me know, what's the thing that first thing comes to your mind with your with feeling embarrassed? Okay, so now as you're taking a look at this, why is this important? I feel like this is important because when we have that, what do? We put up a guard, put up a block, and that's holding us back, and again, creating more tightness in our body. And sometimes the thing that we're afraid of doing, the thing on the other side isn't that as big and scary as it seems at the time. Okay. So it looks like Christy's typing here. And then as you do that, start to take a look at what feels like, where are you getting the message from your body this week? What in your body is raising its hand? It might be an ache, might be a pain, might be just something out of the blue. The stories that I hear from people are interesting. Somebody that I know was having intense liver pain last week. Liver pain, all over pain. He went to the doctor, he got checked. They did all the scans, they could see nothing. Went to a second opinion, they could see nothing. Went to the urgent care twice, could see nothing. All of these things, there was nothing that conventional medicine was telling them was wrong. But he was in his words, if 10 was the most pain he's ever felt in his life and 0 was not, he was feeling a 10 or 11. That's what he was feeling all throughout the week. And conventional medicine had nothing from the scans. So he went through this process because really it was the only option, the only other option he had. And it started going away more and more until a couple of days was completely gone. And then he started feeling more energy than he's had probably all year, he said. So the thing that I'd like to remind us here is that imagine there is an ever-flowing geyser of life force, of vitality, of energy, of youthfulness. I believe that's constantly coming through us. It's just that all these blocks, all these tension in our body starts closing that down. And it gets harder to heal. It gets harder to heal. But as we release those, the life force flows through our body again. And the practical way of looking at that is that literally the blood starts flowing back into areas that it was closed off from nutrients. And when that happens, it can heal, it can adapt, it can grow, it can heal. So let's take a look at what body part hurts this week. Okay, so there we go. We got right wrist, shoulders, right inner knee. Okay, upper back towards the neck. Actually, okay. So Tim, is that left or right or middle? Left, right, or middle?
More on the right, I would say, but towards the middle, but like right side probably.
Okay, great. So you can just go ahead and type that in the chat for me, please, so we have a note of it. And that is good. Okay, right hip. All right. So what we're going to do in the flow state experience is dial this in. And that's what I've been finding is that a combination of all these different methods, I've found it create the miraculous healing. Like, and what I've found too is when we just do one part of it, it's super helpful, but it doesn't like create the full miraculous healing. It requires the body part, the emotional pattern, the feeling it, the releasing it with the command codes, and then the inner child dialogue has actually been the key, and then activating the positive. So we're going to do that stack here. And why I'm looking over here, because I have my iPad with all the different ailments in the body digitized in a spreadsheet. So I'm thinking about how I'm going to share this most easily with everyone. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in the chat. That's what Christy and I did last time.